Picture a movie theater. Now picture pulling it out of your pocket. That's what the Sony Xperia 1 feels like. It has a 21:9 screen, so it really gives you a cinematic viewing experience, and that's because of that super tall display. But as with any Sony phone these days, it comes with a lot of baggage. Is the baggage worth $950? Let's take a look. Phones usually have a 16:9 aspect ratio, but nowadays we're seeing more and more devices with a 18:9 aspect ratio or a 19:9 aspect ratio. You're getting a taller and narrower device, and the Xperia 1 goes all the way with its 21:9 aspect ratio. Why? Well, most films are shot in 21:9, so watching movies on the Xperia 1 gives you a very cinematic experience. You're getting a 6.5-inch screen, 4K resolution, and HDR support. Okay, it's not true movie 4K, but you're getting a 3840 by 1644 resolution, and that makes it pixel-packed. Sony says the display offers a faithful reproduction of color, matching reference monitors, the kind used in Hollywood. You need to turn this on in display settings, it's called creator mode, but when you do, it is a treat. Movies in Netflix, for example, have really natural colors. The 4K resolution keeps things looking sharp, and the aspect ratio ties it all down together for that cinematic look. But there are two problems. First, not all videos I watch on my phone are filmed in 21:9. Lots of YouTube videos, for example, Stranger Things Season 3 on Netflix, for example, is also in 16:9, so oftentimes you'll see black bars on the sides of content. Now you can pinch in to make it take up the full frame, but you're cropping in on resolution and content can get cut off. Second, the Xperia 1 screen doesn't get very bright. Yes, it's fine with apps like Google Maps and Twitter outdoors, but when comparing the darker scenes from Stranger Things between the Xperia 1 and the Galaxy S10 Plus, I could hardly make out what's happening on the Xperia 1 screen, whereas this scene was significantly easier to see on the Galaxy S10 Plus. Sony wants to give you this cinematic experience, but the Xperia 1, unlike a movie theater, is a phone. Brightness outdoors is a problem, and that limits exactly where you can watch a movie, breaking that promise of a cinema in your pocket. Sound is just as important when talking about the movie theater, and that's why Sony has put in dual stereo speakers. They can get very loud, but they do sound a bit tinny. They're not as good as phones like the Razer Phone 2 or the Galaxy S10 Plus. There's plenty of high-res audio format support though, but sadly, no headphone jack. There is aptX HD though, so that means you can get high-quality wireless streaming. Now, while there may be a few hiccups with the 21:9 screen, I do like the way the phone feels. It's tall and narrow, and it's easy to grasp with one hand. It can be tough to reach the top, but it's also making it harder to go back to a 16:9 or an 18:9 phone because it's just so narrow and graspable. It's kind of like holding a TV remote, and that's a compliment. The rounded corners add to the in-hand comfort, and the phone doesn't feel too heavy. It's Gorilla Glass on the front and the back, and that means it's slippery, and also a fingerprint magnet, so it's a good idea to case it up. Yes, it's not a bezel-less screen on the front, but the bezels here are slim, and it still manages to look modern and sleek. Thank God there is no under-glass fingerprint sensor. I don't know about you, but I haven't had a good experience with them, and that's why I prefer them to be on the exterior of the phone. That's where Sony has put its one, on the side of the phone. And actually, it's on this side that you'll get access to all the buttons. The power button is a little too low for me. I do wish it was a little higher, and my palm keeps touching the fingerprint sensor, so when I'm walking around with it, and when I want to suddenly use it, it'll give me a too many attempts notification, so then I can't use the fingerprint sensor. Not the best placement there. Most Android phones let you double tap the power button to open the camera, but Sony has configured it here to open Google Assistant. Instead, there is a dedicated camera shutter button. You can press and hold it to open the camera, but we'll get to the camera in a bit. Quick word on performance, it's the Snapdragon 855 in here, along with 6 gigs of RAM. There's 128 gigs of storage and a micro SD card slot if you need more space. Now, it's plenty powerful. I've been able to use it without any performance issues, and games run really well as well. But there were some visual issues playing games. Not all games support the 21:9 aspect ratio, so some have black bars on the top or the bottom, some look a little cut off, but some can actually be a little detrimental. Now, of course, there are games that you can find that are 21:9, for example, Asphalt 9, and it looks really great, but you do have to go and hunt for those types of games. On the software side of things, Sony is sticking close to stock Android 9 Pie, and that's great because it looks clean and is easy to use. There's also some Sony flavors like SideSense, which lets you double tap the bezel to get a customizable tray of apps. Now, you can also swipe down or up on the bezel to trigger certain actions. For example, I've let swipe down open the notification bar, and a swipe up will open up multitasking apps. Speaking of multitasking, it works really well here with the 21:9 screen because you're getting a lot more screen space to have more of an app on the top and the bottom. And the way to access them is pretty intuitive. That swipe up opened up this multitasking apps list, and I can put any two apps apps pretty quickly on the top and the bottom. It hasn't really made me use multitasking more though. I think the only phone that has made me use split screen is the Samsung Galaxy Fold. And that's another benefit with 21:9 screens. You can see more content when comparing it to an 18:9 screen or 19:9 screen, and the difference is even greater when comparing it to a 16:9 screen. That just means more content, less scrolling perhaps in apps like Twitter and Instagram. But while the software experience has largely been positive, I have run into a lot of bugs. For example, Bluetooth streaming, I can't put the phone in my pocket and listen to music because music gets all stuttery. I have to take the phone out and hold it in my hand. I also have an issue where I can't put it in my pocket for long because it just tends to do a lot of random things, like go into the system settings, it opens up random apps. It even tweeted on my behalf once, and also turned on the LED, so I had to take it out to turn it off. On top of that, Instagram stories get cut off. The camera gave me an error once, so I had to force close it. And speaking of the camera, I also can't take photos while listening to music because tapping on the shutter button pauses the music. So a lot of these problems just make it feel like this phone is not polished yet. Speaking of the camera, it is a triple lens system on the back. You get a 12 megapixel wide angle lens, a 12 megapixel telephoto lens, as well as a 12 megapixel standard lens. The biggest takeaway is you're getting some of the most natural colors I've seen from a smartphone camera. But I still think other cameras in this price range can take better photos overall. Yes, you get good color accuracy and strong details in good lighting conditions, but the wide-angle lens takes really distorted images, and the telephoto lens can be a little fuzzy sometimes. The camera also seems to struggle with HDR and high contrast scenarios. Some areas in some photos can be too dark, and some can be too bright, leading with overexposed or underexposed images. I also had some trouble autofocusing while in low light. It just took a while. That doesn't mean the camera can't impress though. This photo of the church really stunned me, and the photo of the rose shows how well it can handle natural bokeh. But portrait mode is a little disappointing. The details aren't as strong, and the blur outlines are a little fuzzy. It also doesn't seem to handle HDR well here at all. The Xperia 1 has an 8 megapixel selfie camera, and images look good with good lighting conditions, but otherwise there's nothing else to write home about. But it's videography that shines. Not the standard video camera here in the camera app, but a separate app called Cinema Pro. You can shoot in 21:9 4K HDR, and you get granular controls to make it look exactly how you want. It doesn't look as great at night, but if you have the right light, you can get some really nice colors. I just wish it came with some stabilization, as videos can look a little janky. Think 4K 6.5-inch screen. You're probably expecting Sony put a beefy battery in there, right? Nope, it's a 3300 mAh battery, and it does well for what it is. You can get to about 20%, 30% around 6 p.m. with some light to average use, but use a little more, use it for gaming, streaming, browsing the web, taking lots of pictures, and you'll probably need to plug it in before the day is out. In our battery test, we played a 1080p YouTube video over Wi-Fi with max brightness, and the Sony Xperia 1 only lasted 7 hours and 10 minutes. That's pretty dreadful. The Galaxy S10 Plus, for example, lasted more than 14 hours. On a more positive note, the phone does charge back up pretty quickly. You can get about 50% back with 30 minutes of charging, but you also have to know that there is no wireless charging. That's a bummer because most phones in this price range do offer wireless charging as a feature. The Xperia 1 costs $950, is available from retailers like Amazon, Best Buy, and B&H, but I don't think you should buy it, because phones like the Galaxy S10 offer better features like a brighter display, a better battery life, as well as things like wireless charging. You can even get a better camera experience from phones like the Pixel 3. The quirks in the software with the Xperia 1, as well as the lack of 21:9 content, doesn't really make it worth the high price tag. But I do think we should pay attention to 21:9 phones, as I think they'll be a lot more common than they are now. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you have any thoughts on the Xperia 1, leave it in the comments. Otherwise, like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and head to digitaltrends.com for more.